The deadlift is a movement that I feel a lot of people struggle with, so I wanted to go over some cues that have been beneficial for me. I feel like in the gym or common gym bro stuff, I hear a lot of the same things like, you want to drag the bar across your shins. It's one of the most common things I hear. And for me, the bar barely touches my shins. It might be in contact, barely grazing at certain points. When I would try and drag the bar across my shins, I was so focused on that element of it that I wasn't really getting the concept of what a deadlift was supposed to be, which is a hip hinge movement. Just because it looks like you took a cheese grater to your shins, it doesn't mean that you executed this well. Same with chest up. Well, okay, yes, to an extent, but you don't want your chest up like you do in a squat. It is going to be a different body posture than a squat. And that's another thing that I kind of wanted to focus on, because it should be a lot more posterior chain and not as much quad as you're getting out of the squat. Finally was the hips back. Although yes, your hips should be back, you should also have a concept of, I guess, your hip position overall. So basically, because your hips are back in an RDL, right? But the way that I usually recommend, if you're not familiar with the deadlift and or if you just don't feel like your deadlift is great and you want to work on that a little bit, walk up to the bar and try and split your foot basically with the bar. Have the bar right about in the center of the length of your foot. From there, you're going to squat down until you're going to squat down until your shins hit the bar. At that point, the rest of the range of motion is going to come from leaning forward. So that's about, then you get a little bit of tension in the bar, pull that slack out, and then that's about your start point. So your hips are low, but they're not low like a squat, and they're not up like an RDL, even though that would still be back. Then from there, you're going to drive your hips up and forward, basically simultaneously. And that's basically it. So the cues for me are split your foot for your getting set up. Squat down until your shins hit, then finish the movement at your upper body. Then get everything tense, pull the slack out of the bar, and keep your chest up, but again, not to the point where you're dropping down into a squat. And then finally, the biggest thing that's always helped me out is focus on it as a hip hinge movement. All these other cues that I ever got for deadlift from the time I was honestly probably in high school was my first time attempting it, up until my late 20s. It never felt right. I was always very weak with the movement. I remember at one point I had a 500-pound squat and I didn't even think I could pull 4 plates off the ground. Like I don't even think I could get it to budge off the ground. 315 pounds felt like the weight of the world for me, even though I was squatting 500, because I was so bad with the movement, because I didn't understand what I was trying to accomplish. So I was always trying to figure out how to better engage back muscles through the movement. And really, they're just involved more for stability. So it isn't a back-focused exercise. It's a hip, glute, posterior, lower body posterior chain focused exercise. You are going to get some quad drive. There is going to be a lot of tension probably in a lot of the musculature throughout your back, but that's not really what's the primary focus that you're